Hello, everyone. Welcome to Strategic Management, Unit number 8. In Unit number 8, we're going to be talking about international strategy. So, in this unit, we'll be understanding how companies set their operations abroad, right? Which is part of the strategy as well. We've been talking of how they develop their plans, they use their resources, they set up a strategy, and it comes a point of time where the market is exhausted. Maybe the market that the company is operating in has no more room for growing, or simply they want to look for different markets, diversification of the risk. We understand that probably maybe a market already has some issues. So in that sense, they will look for different options. Different options, that means different markets. Okay, very good. So in this case, for example, setting up international operations is not always that easy. There's too many factors involved that can lead to a negative outcome. And I think in this sense, we always have to be more negative than positive. And actually, it is the other way around. Companies tend to be very positive about what is going to happen abroad based on their evaluations. But again, the evaluations are always still subjective because there's still things that although we plan and we manage the risk, still things don't go the way that we want. So here, for example, we have the case of why McDonald's flopped in Vietnam. And that is not the only case. There's many food chains that are not, well, fast food chains that are not really succeeding in there. And again, there's many factors which mostly are economic, because in this case we have to understand economic and social, because in this case the Vietnamese society has very different ways of consuming and their purchasing power is not that strong. Yeah, surely they are moving, and Vietnam is an incredible country that really is growing very quickly and really advancing, but still is not at the point where really they can really have that disposable income as other countries, right? Very good. This is not like China. China fast food chains that have they really have a great success, but it's not the case. And then so many Southeast Asian countries, but not Vietnam. They watch the video. I think it will be interesting for you. So, anyways, let's go about this. So first of all, we're gonna talk. Let's overall talk about it. So in this case, we're gonna talk about how to identify those opportunities abroad. We're gonna understand a little bit of the resources and capabilities that will dictate our strategy abroad. We're gonna talk about which methods of entering a certain market are the best ones. Well, the available ones and the best ones based on what we want to achieve initially and how we're gonna develop that plan over time. We're gonna talk about some of the problems and risks, and then of course we will understand what we will achieve out of that. So let's go into it. So first of all, like I said, what are the reasons for setting up an international strategy? Like I said, most of the time we already have an exhausted market. Already the market is capped. There's no more, well, there's opportunities, but in some certain areas already is capped. There's no more room for improvement. So in this case, we have new opportunities. Then we can see a new market, maybe a market that doesn't have that product yet or that service. We see that opportunity. Or maybe it's an economy that just opened. It could be the case, for example, of Myanmar. Myanmar was closed for many years and then it opens. And then, of course, there's opportunities because the market is not fully developed. And then, of course, we understand we can grow in there, right? So we also understand that we can have international diversification, which comes in hand with the PESO, no? The political, economic, and social, technical, legal, etc. Because sometimes we operate in a certain market or certain markets, and those markets already start to become very difficult for many reasons. It can be political, economic. The economy is not moving, has tanked. So we have to think of new markets that can rejuvenate our brand, that can bring that cash flow, that can really push us a little bit and give us a breather. Okay, very good. So we have in this case, like I said, in this one, Another reason is we need to secure need resources. Maybe we set operations in a certain country because we have some resources in there. Maybe it can be production, it can be any supply or raw material. Then we decide to start there and start to produce there. Also can be, right? And there's many other motives. There's plenty of them. Okay, because in the end, maybe we, like I said, we have a corporate strategy that plans to go into different markets, integrate them, or perhaps gain innovation from other markets or gain some ideas too. So, like I said, in this case, like we talked about increased market size. Like I said, in this case, we want a larger market. In this case, also what happens is that when we increase the market, and then I think we have it in here, we have the economies of scale. Those two go very well together. Like I said, first of all, when we start to produce in another country, already our operating cost starts to be how to say, it has a meaning. It has a meaning in the sense that if we are producing, let's say, 10,000 units, for me to produce 20,000, it doesn't require that much more cost. So in this case, we can profit better out of already that operation that we already set up. We already have the resources, we already have the facilities. So to produce more, it is just a minimal investment that we have to do, but the return comes at a much larger scale. Again, also the return on investment, we see that we don't have to invest much to export to another country or set operations. So in that sense, that's a good idea. Like I said, in this case, it could be the economies of scale. We produce more, it doesn't cost us that much more. But here we add the learning, and in the learning we understand that we learn from different markets. Different markets behave in different ways, and sometimes by setting operations in another country will bring new knowledge that maybe in a certain country we never explored, or it never popped up. Right? Very good. We also have location advantages. Also, we understand that by setting operations in a certain place or region, we can have, like I said, access to some certain materials, or it can be lower cost labor, or we can have key customers in the area, in the region, etc. So there's also locational advantages. Usually, in this case, like I said, let's say I plan to, for example, set my operations in Indonesia. So maybe in this case, it could be like, for example, the palm oil, let's say for Nutella. No? So this is a case where you set your operations there, you set your production in there, you clinch those resources, and since you're already operating in some certain way, you can distribute the product as well. So it's like a second step. Here, for example, we see on this image, we can see the expansion, which is Asia is a target for Starbucks. Starbucks already has plenty of operations in the Western world, but they saw a very huge opportunity in Asia. Mostly why? Here, because we have rising disposable income. Like I said, in the middle class, they understood that China, they understood that all the Asian tigers, which is Singapore, Taiwan, Korea, etc., all the Asian tigers are moving into the direction that they can afford a coffee of $5-6. So for them, in this case, it represented a big opportunity, and they have exponentially grown with this opportunity. They understood the market, what they want to do, and then they did it very well. And here we can see already with some projections of how this is going to change. How the projection of the China's urban household by income group. So you will see how it starts to grow, and then of course they can afford more, and why not reaching them. Okay, very good. So like I said much earlier, I said we have business level strategy or corporate level strategy. So here we're going to make a distinction out of the two of them, and it's very simple. In the international business level strategy, we just set some businesses out there, but we may look for having a specific type of operation. I spoke about this before. For example, the case of Shinsege and the No brand. right? So no brand opened their operations in the Philippines, and this is precisely a business level strategy. They are not setting the whole Shinsegae umbrella. Well, of course, they have operation of other business, but corporate, they don't have all of the Shinsegae, I don't know, all of their small shops, etc., etc. They don't need mart, etc. They don't have all of them. They just say decided to set up this one cost leadership in that specific country. That works for them. Not no need to open a Shinsegae departmental store in the Philippines, because at this point of time, perhaps the strategy wouldn't work. Maybe in the future, when we think about the corporate level strategy, we will think what we could do in the Philippines, but not at the time. So in this case, like I said, the corporate level strategy implies setting all the operations in there rather than just one business unit. So let's go to understanding the different levels of corporate level strategies that we will set abroad. Okay, so in this case, we have two areas. First of all, we on one side we have a company that has global integration, which is very simple, same product everywhere. That's it. Minor differences, or I need to set up local responsiveness, which is I cannot give how to say same product everywhere. I need to localize it. I need to make it different on every market, because maybe that specific product or so it has the consumers here need it in a very specific local way. Otherwise, they wouldn't consume it. And then, of course, we have the transnational one, which is in between. We have a range of products that are for all the markets, but we also have a range of products that focus on the local market. So in this case, let's talk about that. In this case, for example, we have the multi-domestic here. A good example is Nestle. Nestle has a lot of Nestle's around the world. They develop locally. They produce a lot of their products locally. And then, of course, they have different strategies for different markets. And in the end, I mean, they don't report they do report to the main headquarters, but again, they are independent units because they understand and they try to adapt to the local market. We have, for example, Global is Pfizer. In this case, Pfizer. For example, we have pharmaceuticals are across all the markets. They have to be the same, right? The strategy is the same. So they don't change the product because in the end, well, maybe in some markets they cannot enter because of the regulations, but in general they don't modify their products to match the local market because it's difficult for them. Pharmaceuticals may require another 10 years to set a new product. So in this case, they just follow one for everyone. And then we have the transnational. Here we have the case of Unilever. Actually, Unilever and Nestle operate in very similar ways, but Unilever is a bit more, how to say, they have their global strategy. There's some certain products that are throughout the same, like some shampoos, same everywhere. But when it comes to, for example, to some food, that's a different story. When it comes to different food, they target more of the local taste, So in this case, they have some brands that focus on the local taste, and rather than, like, for example, for saying something, one of their food products is the chicken stock, and the chicken stock tastes different almost in every different market. Some of them is saltier, some of them is more pronounced, the flavor. And again, like I said, for some of the shampoo line, same, but transnational, they focus on local markets as well by differentiating the different products. So in this case, the transnational strategy is hard to implement. Firstly, because we understand that global strategies are different to implement. The markets are very different. The markets have their own identities, and it's very different. However, we have the regional focus. So here's, for example, here I give you the case of ASEAN. ASEAN compromises all the Southeast Asian countries, which they share a lot of values, resources, ingredients, tastes, etc. In this sense, regionally can work, right? So the transnational can work. This is working, and this for many companies this is what they are choosing to do, choosing specific regions so that they don't have to localize all the products. They have some certain, how to say, common denominator that makes them have products that are good for all the markets. So here we have the international entry modes. So depending on what we want to achieve or how much risk we want to go through. So in this case, for example, we have the first one, which is exporting. So in exporting, I don't have the appetite for the risk of setting all my operations first. Why? Because I don't know how the market is going to react on my product, or maybe I cannot set the operations in there for many reasons. And means I will just put my product in there. I'll just send my product abroad. Who's going to sell it? Who's going to distribute it? I don't know. That's another story. But I'm just going to put my product in there. And if I see that the numbers start to pick up because there's a good reception of that product in that specific country, then I may start to open my operations in there, right? In which way? Maybe we can go already to, for example, the licensing. Okay, so the licensing, that means when, let's go back a little bit to importing. When we're talking about exporting, it has a lot of high transportation cost. Means to send my products abroad, it costs me a lot of money. So it's better to produce it there. But again, I'm not completely ready to set operations there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give someone the permit to produce it in there. So in this case, like I said, I already know I have sufficient selling numbers into that market, but I need someone that produces it in there because I'm not fully ready to open my operations there, or politically I cannot do it. Also can be another area that it can be that maybe for me to set operations in there, I can only own 40% of my stakes. I can only own them there, and then perhaps it's better to have someone there. Licensing also has other issues, which is, for example, well, not other issues, other reasons for be used, which could be maybe there's already companies that are controlling the market, maybe they have the distribution channels. So for me to go and compete face to face with them is a lose situation for me. So I rather give them the license to produce it and then distribute it and so on. Okay, here for example we have this now, Nintendo license a lot of products, a lot of their video games and so. Okay, and it could be, in this case, for example, this product that I have here, the Lotte Doritos, original brand is Frito-Lay, but of course here in Korea is produced by Lotte, which actually is a bit of a license somehow, or it is more of a strategic alliance. In this case, like for example, we pass from just produce it to let's be more friends, let's share some of our capabilities, products, etc. And then of course, yeah, we are more confident that the product really can kick up there in that specific market. So for that matter, then we give them more rights, we share more rights and responsibilities, and also benefits as well. Problem with the strategic alliances is that sometimes has a risk of maybe getting the copy the product, or so that could be a little bit difficult and is difficult to manage. We go to the next example, which is I am completely sure my operations are good in there. I have success in that market. Maybe I went already through 1, 2, and 3. However, to set operations, a wholly new operation is very difficult. Maybe there's already a company that already has the distribution channels, maybe the customers, the locations, etc. And then we decide to acquire them. We are a much larger company and we just buy them and then boom, we put our name in there. This is, for example, here, I can give you the example here in Vietnam of the Lotte company acquired this Techcombank. So they already have a plenty of businesses in there. Lotte has already plenty of businesses in Vietnam, but they wanted to launch a credit card. But for them, the regulations for setting credit card, banking, financial, is too troublesome. So why should I go through all the hassle of getting those permits if I can just acquire that company? I just acquire one bank and that's it. And then they distribute my product, which is in this case a Lotte card. And then we go to the last one, the new wholly owned subsidiary, which is a completely new operation. Yeah, I know already that I can set operations in there, everything works. Here, for example, we have the case of Disney, no, Disneyland in China or in Hong Kong. So in this case, I already sell Disney products. I already have some stores in there. I already have some licenses, etc. But I want already to set operations for Disneyland in there, right? So in this case, we establish an entirely new subsidiary, a new park in there. Here, there is one very big issue actually, which is in China. Disneyland owes less than 50% of the capital because of Chinese regulations. But in the end, it was a very, very, very juicy market, and for that reason they decided to open new operations in there. So in this case has the highest potential returns because in the end is we set production in there, we get the revenue there, and there's no back and forth movement of money, and we don't have to share with anyone, right? So anyways, in this case, which one is the best suited is depends on many factors. Like I said, I'm just going to start the market is difficult, maybe I don't have the capital, maybe the market is still very new, etc. There's very, very many reasons. Okay, so again, in this case, we have to think of that. So in this case, like I said, what are the strategic competitive outcomes? What happens when we set up operations in there? So first of all, we have diversification and returns. We get more money because we are operating abroad. We diversify markets. Some markets are faring well, some markets are faring not so well. Maybe in this case, for example, let's put it right now, again, the example of the No brand, right? So maybe the Philippines is going through an economic boom and they are purchasing a lot, fantastic. And maybe the Korea economy is stagnated a little bit, which actually is the other way around. But anyways, let's put it that way. So becomes a cash cow for us. The same thing, because what I was saying is an innovation. It can happen in that some markets create a lot of innovation. This is the case, for example, of Sony, the company of electronics. They have operations in many countries and they have many subsidiaries. And that is fantastic for them because they have hired a lot of local engineers and they brought a lot of innovation to their main headquarters. So Sony is very respectful in the sense that if you have a good innovation, bring it back to headquarters, and then maybe we will distribute it again throughout of our network, right? And then of course, we will have to understand that the complexity. We have to understand the complexity of the managing these multinational firms. We gain knowledge. Mostly, we understand how, once we set operations abroad, we understand how it works, and then we can do the same process into another market. So it's another outcome that we have, the learning process. Okay, so risk in the international environment is when I'm just going to talk about political and economical. Well, of course, it's all a puzzle, but political and economic pretty much are the two that first we will look at. Whether we have a political stable country. Here, for example, I give you the case of Venezuela. Venezuela was a great economy. It was working very well. They were moving forward, but then they have a dictatorship from Hugo Chavez and now Maduro. So we had two presidents that, specifically the last one, that has nationalized all the resources, and companies are fleeing out of there. People has no money. So many of the large companies, all the international airlines already have left. So many fast food chains have left. Why? Because in the end, for them, it's too risky to still continue operating in there. So we have to always look for countries that, although they are juicy, we have to understand whether there's no risk. For example, we talk about India. India is a growing economy, it's fantastic. But politically are in and out sometimes. Turkey, the case of Turkey, is another economy that has a lot of potential, but politically in and out. So we have to be very careful of how we're going to invest in there. And the other one again is economically, which is what happens in terms of the money, how it fluctuates. Certain economies also don't have a strong economy, and that means that whereas one day we make a lot of profit, the other day we made up end up in red numbers because the I forgot. I was gonna say the fluency, but not no, the frequency. No, well, the currency is worth nothing, right? So this is a very big issue. This is the case, for example, of Vietnam just now that I was saying that is a great market, but when it comes to the currency, it depreciates very often. So that is a very huge problem. Of course, there's risk. There's strategies for hedging, and then of course maybe doing the currency exchanges in advance, or whenever there's low price of it, we buy more of it, etc. Anyways, there's strategies for that, but we need to consider them. Or it could be, like I said, international problems, like trade barriers, etc. Here we have the trade war between US and China. This is affecting economies and businesses all over the world. Anyways, very good. So that's it for this unit. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll see you next week.